All right, welcome back here to the Gill Athletics Connections podcast. I'm super happy you pressed play today. Maybe there's always never a surprise to the guest, right? Because you're looking on the iPad or looking on the podcast, so you already see the name and the school and things like that. And maybe you're scratching your head a little bit of like, wait a minute, I'm not sure I know today's guest. I don't know that I've heard this name. And those are exciting to me because that means I get to introduce you to other people, other coaches in this great sport of ours. And so I threw the fishing rod far. I went all the way to New Zealand for this one. I'm so excited. Help me welcome. He's a throws coach, sports performance from New Zealand. He's also coaches of Olympians. So that's always kind of cool. Help me welcome from the great country of New Zealand, the wise, the wonderful, Mr. Mike Schofield. Mike, how are you today, sir?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so American centric. I almost said from the great state of New Zealand.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the state that you live in is bigger than New Zealand. So,
Is that right? How many people?
yeah, like 4 million.
Yeah, I'm in Illinois, so Chicago, I think, and Chicagoland, I think, has New Zealand beat. Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
yeah. I bet it's prettier in New Zealand though. Chicago has its places, but it's all tall buildings basically. I bet New Zealand's probably a little bit more prettier overall though.
Yeah, yeah. It's likely. Yeah.
Well, Mike, first of all, thank you so much for being here. Mike and I got connected because there's another project coming up here on the podcast. Mr. David Burnett, and I'll explain more about that project when we actually publish it. He did like the coolest thing in the world. You know me, I'm always trying to find who actually coaches these awesome athletes. When it's the NCAA championships, it's fairly easy. I can Google, who the coaches at USC or North Texas or whatnot is. The elites though, so when we're watching the pre-classic or the Diamond League or the Olympics, they never talk about their coach. Some of them will shout out their coaches, and I love that. Absolutely love that. So David Burnett went out and created this Excel sheet, and his journey was to go find every medalist in every track event, 100 all the way through the marathon, and who coaches them. And he was missing just a few. So first of all, I asked him for that list because I actually absolutely want to start uplifting and honoring those men and women that are Olympic coaches. And he had a couple of gaps, so I started filling in through Twitter. You know me on Twitter. And one of the gaps was for the shot put, the silver medalist, Maddison-Lee. I knew I was going to mess that. Wesche. What? Help me out.
Wishy,
Wesche. Thank you.
wishy. Yeah.
And someone said, "Hey, a guy named Mike Schofield coaches them." Actually, Bo Throws is who said that. Thank you, Bo Throws, and connected us. And Mike reached out, and I was like, we don't have enough. We don't have hardly any international coaches here, and I think it's interesting to see a different aspect. Somebody who didn't grow up through our high school system, our youth club system, even our NCAA system. This guy's going to have a unique journey here. So I'm super excited to kind of dive into it, learn. I know nothing. I know where New Zealand is. Boom, that's it. I can kind of spell it maybe, but I'm excited to learn your journey, Mike. So man, I'm just so excited. Thank you for getting up early, or maybe not, maybe you're a morning guy, but getting up. It's 17, I think is what it ended up being, 17-hour time difference. So Mike, I'm just so grateful for you, man. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
No problem. No problem at all.
Well, let's get into it. I know two. No, I know one and a half things about you. One, I'm not sure there's a much of a track background, and I'm excited about that. And two, that you coached Michelle to Madison to the silver medalist. So let's get in our Wayback Machine here. Where does track and field start for you?
Yeah, I mean, so I probably took a pretty non-traditional path into coaching. I can't throw. Like literally shot put, disc, hammer. It'll be painful for everyone to watch if you watch me throw. So yeah, I don't come from track and field at all. I actually originally come from golf. And then as per most people, or some people, failed athlete. I mean, wasn't gonna make it as a professional golfer, which was my dream up until I was about 18. And where I come from, like sort of parents relatively not poor, but certainly didn't have the money to fund a golfer from New Zealand to travel and try and make money. So sort of kicked out of home, go to university, and my sort of gripe was that I never hit it far enough as a golfer. So I sort of pursued how to hit it further. Learned to hit it quite far. And one of the avenues that I pursued was weightlifting coaching, so Olympic weightlifting. So I became an Olympic weightlifter, and for 4 to 6 years, as I did a degree and a master's, and my master's was in golf performance. So through that journey, the weightlifting club was somewhat aligned to an athletics club where the athletics guys would come and train. And I picked up a few athletes as or throwers for strength and conditioning. The work I was sort of doing in golf with rotational power, they were sort of curious about, and Olympic weightlifting was traditionally quite a part of track and field.
So let's pause there. Let's go back just a little bit. Let's see what commonalities there are or are not with American system. When you grew up a golfer, there's got to be, I'm assuming there's got to be some type of high school. So were you like on the high school team as a golfer, or is this more club or?
Yeah, so we actually don't really have a school sports system here.
Okay.
And so sports scholarships, other than some rugby, and a few netball scholarships exist, but certainly golf and track and field just non-existent. So you're largely privately funded. Parents back you. There's a governing body that sort of probably similar to kind of like the USGA. Here we have New Zealand Golf that runs events that you play in, and it's not until you make the national team that there's some support there. So I was sort of a third ranked under 19 in New Zealand, but really wasn't good enough to make it as a professional. And at 18 years old, you either have to make money or you got to find a career.
Right.
And sort of especially where I was from.
Yeah, that's interesting, because that would be the same in the US if we didn't have the NCAA system.
Yeah.
There it's like, okay, well, you still got 4 more years to give it a go for air quotes free. You got to pay for the education or scholarships. But before you're just out on your own as a 22, 23-year-old, then you got to figure some stuff out. So with golf, I love that. So I am terrible at golf. Maybe I golf once a year, and I haven't golfed in years. That tells you how much I golf. Now, one of my teammates who this isn't, but these are, I don't know. Okay, we'll just figure it out. One of my teammates here was one of the top 10 javelin throwers in the U.S. And he now is big. He's always loved golf, but he loves the long drive contest and things like that. Did you grow up like were you a golf family? Is that why golf? Because you mentioned rugby, so I know there are other sports and athletics, of course. Was it kind of the background of your family, and that's how you got into golf?
No. So interestingly, my father hated golf when I was younger. We had a farm we're farming country, and we had a farm that went around the edge of a golf course. And so golfers used to jump the fence to try and find their ball, and dad just hated them, absolutely hated it. So he used to stand on our lawn and yell at them.
He didn't hate golf because he was no good at it. He hated the golfers that would.
Yeah. Sort of the get off my property type
personal
of thing.
Vendetta.
Yeah. And so we live where I grew up was sort of 45, 50 minutes from the nearest town. And when I say town, I mean like 100,000 people kind of town. So we were quite rural, and the school I went to had the first school I went to had kind of 7 students, and the second school I went to had like 50 students, just local kind of farming
Wow.
students. And so when you got home from school, you needed something to do. I used to walk around the side of the golf course and pick up golf balls and sometimes sell them back to the golfers or something like that, make $1 as a young fella. And I just started picking up a golf club, and there was a local who was kind of, he'd done sort of like a level 1 coaching certificate, and he started to run these clinics. And because I lived across the road, I just walked over and started playing. And then the local pro from the local town would come out, well, I think once a month, and he'd run these kind of clinics on a weekend. Same thing, I'd walk across the road and sort of he'd coach me. Golf was, the access was easy. I got my grandfather's golf clubs that were wood, and just started whacking a golf ball around the golf course in my spare time. And the irony there is my father actually now plays a lot of golf. So he got right into golf because I got into golf, and then I quit. So I quit golf, and so now he's the golfer in the family, which is, and like I still play a little bit, but my old man's into it.
That's funny. You said an important word there, and I was thinking about it as you were talking about it. It was literally right across the street, and you said the word access. And I do think about that at times with whether it's athletes or people who want to get into coaching and things like that. Like there's probably some amazing athletes in a lot of different sports, but specifically here with track and field, who may have would go on to set the world record in the javelin or the shot or whatever, but have no access to it, whether it's monetarily, location wise. I mean, again, there's a little bit of serendipity that you lived right on the edge of a golf course and the instructor was across the street. It's really, I know, I just think about that at times. I've said this before on the podcast that I think everybody is put on this earth to do one thing, like super, like Picasso-esque type well, right? But 99.99% of us never find it. That doesn't mean we don't do amazing things, but like maybe Mike, you're supposed to be like the world's best sculptor, but there was no sculpting class or aptitude to even introduce you to it. And so you become a golfer and then, a track, it's just interesting to me about access. I thought that was an important word. So when you grow up, you learn golfing and golf and get pretty good at it. When you go to university, what did you think about, like, what, as you're going in, we call it freshman year. I don't know what you necessarily call it there. What were you thinking about? Like, I'm going to become I know you probably wanted to be a professional golfer, but I'm going to become a doctor, a business owner. I'm going to get my degree and come back and help with the farm. What were you thinking at first when you go into university for a career?
Yeah, I mean, I was still thinking golf. So I sort of thought if I went in and got into strength and conditioning or personal training or something like that, and I figured out how to hit it far enough, I could kind of fill the gap in my golf game. And then as I kind of went through university, I did figure out how to hit it quite far, and sort of pursued long drive casually for a period of time. Did some events here in New Zealand and Australia. And then sort of people started coming to me for like to try and figure out how to hit it quite far or throw things hard, or because they're all kind of synonymous with one another. And my golf career took a bit of a back seat because I started kind of enjoying the puzzle of performance for other people. And I suppose, I mean, it flows through to my motivation now is that I suppose as I reflect on like why I do what I do now, I probably received some poor advice now, but it was probably the only advice at the time. Is here in New Zealand, there was a belief that you were born hitting it far or born hitting it straight. And it was like these natural gift type things, and I didn't buy it. And I just sort of thought, surely you can figure this out. And so I sort of, like, I'm at peace with it now, but I sort of felt for a while like I was let down by the coaching staff that around me that
Yeah.
were around me, because they weren't curious enough to pursue avenues.
Yeah, you just said one of my favorite words, by the way, curious.
Yeah,
I truly think that's like the super hack of life is curiosity. It's funny that people said that about golf, because I don't know if they do this in New Zealand, but here in the States, this is still very, to your point, we're talking about 2024. Shouldn't we know a lot of things at this point? And there is still a contingent of coaches, and I know some of you are listening right now, that think you can't coach speed. You're just born with
yeah,
it. So for golf, I didn't know that that was kind of a prevailing thought with golf. It's like, yeah, off the tee, you're either born with it or not. There's nothing you can really do to improve upon it, which is crazy.
yeah, totally crazy. Yeah, so it sort of led me down this path of like, well, I don't want to let other kids or athletes that have a dream down by poor advice.
Yeah.
And so I mean, if you sort of look around my office, there's research papers and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I exited a degree with sort of weightlifting coaching, and then I started a master's, and on the back of my master's, I picked up a lot of golfers. They started doing reasonably well. A few sort of local tour professional wins, long driver that qualified for world champs, and there was a local throws coach here in Auckland when I was in Auckland. And he thought that hammer throwing was like golf. The sort of release was similar to golf. And so he sort of said, he started referring people to me. And one of them was a girl called Nicole Bradley, who who I actually lived with as an athlete. So I was a weightlifter and she was a thrower, or trying to be a thrower. And so I kept saying, like, she was kind of a 56-meter thrower, 24 years old, 26 years old maybe. And she'd sort of come home and tell me these stories about training, about some of the advice that she was getting, and it was kind of this what academically we call entity theorists. And an entity theorist believes that you're good because you are. And so the coach would sort of say,
what's it called again? INSEE?
Entity. Yeah.
Is kind of that you're either born fast or not. You either know how to swing the club. Okay, all right. Entity.
And then there's an adaptation theorist, which is the adjunct to that, or sorry, the opposite to that. So an adaptation theorist believes that you can become. And so yeah, I would sort of kind of get in her ear, because I was kind of this adaptation theorist coming from not hitting a golf ball far to hitting a golf ball far. Like surely you're capable of more. Like, and I would sort of look at the gym side of it, and some of it I was like, I just sort of said, this doesn't make sense to me. And so Nicole was like, well, can you do my S&C side? And within kind of 6 or 8 weeks, we got her to over 60 meters, me and this coach.
All right, pause there. We were going to pick right back up here. There's 2 questions I had. One is, this is totally unrelated, but it's just my own little quirk. What was the name of your college? I love college names.
So I went to AUT University.
AUT, and you guys are the Fighting Mountaintops. What's your? Actually, I don't even know. Do you guys have mascots or logos or?
No.
Oh,
no, nothing. No. So we have like AUT University, Auckland University, Waikato University, kind of province-based,
but
names.
No mascot.
No.
Because there's no teams, because it's all
no teams, no college sport.
That makes sense.
Or university sport. So there's really a lack of culture.
Yeah, that makes sense, because the mascot and logo is all about the athletics more than is the university education. Okay, yeah, perfect. Up to, so my second question before we get back to doing a little bit of tweaking, and you move her to 60 meters. That's amazing on its own. A lot of coaches eyebrows raised up there. before you met Nicole, where was track in your life? And what I mean by that, obviously you didn't do track, you didn't do athletics, but did you, when the Olympics came on, did you watch track like, oh, that's kind of cool? Or, was a good friend of yours? Where are you at in track in your life up to that point though?
Yeah. So I suppose it's probably quite important to put a time on this. So I was sort of 20, I would have been 26 at the time. And so like I knew the 100 meters. Everyone knows the 100 meters, but when Nicole originally said like I throw a hammer, I'm like, what's that?
No clue.
Like like here in New Zealand, I knew who Val Adams was,
Sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
but I didn't really know what shot put was.
Wow.
And discus throwing, like I'd sort of seen the Greek statues, but yeah, sort of no idea.
What about
And
javelin?
no,
Not at all. Like,
nothing.
yeah.
No.
Wow. So I
Yeah,
mean, at 26 years of age, and you're not that old, my friend. So that's not this long ago.
it's 10 years ago.
You're a babe. You're a pup in regards to
Yeah.
athletics. I hate to say nothing. That sounds
No,
the
I know.
try.
I genuinely knew nothing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
So what did you think then when this coach comes up to you and says, "Hey, I got this athlete, Nicole. She throws the discus. Would you mind, working with her, doing some S&C stuff?" Like, was there a little bit of like, I should say it this way, was there any of like, bro, I don't even know, like, I'm a golf guy. What are you talking about? Or was there curiosity of like, okay, let me see what's on
yeah.
that other side there?
So I'd sort of known Nicole for some time, and a lot of her gym-based stuff was kind of power cleaning, power snatching,
Mhm.
and done like sort of relatively poorly at the time.
Mhm.
I was like, well, surely I can help you there.
Right.
And she showed me a video of hammer, and I was like, okay, you just like at the time, I was like, you're just spinning around and throwing stuff. Like it's kind of like 4 golf swings in a row, right? Like that was
Okay.
kind of my thinking.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
and I was like, so a bit of rotational power, throw some stuff.
Because you're steeped in rotational because you're doing golf, right? That's a lot.
Yeah,
I don't know enough about golf, but you're just rotate. It's a lot of twisting, not just maybe linear, I guess, or whatever the term would be.
yeah. So I was really
So you're always
in that
thinking that way.
space. Yeah, and so as soon as she showed me the video, I was kind of okay. Like I can connect with that. I don't know what's going on, like, but I can connect with it. And I was like, okay, let's just make you rotationally powerful, and that sort of just flowed on to her doing probably some slightly more specific stuff um, than what was originally planned, and just doing some stuff slightly better, and so that probably led to some of the gain and sort of first throws over 60 meters in her career. Um, and so yeah, I picked up a couple of discus throwers.
Okay, hold on. So we hear, we're episode 270, 280 something. So we've had 200 plus, we're getting close to 300 coaches here. And typically it's usually as an athlete, but sometimes as a beginning coach, there's usually something that happens that they're like, oh yeah, this is me. I'm a track coach. When you're working with Nicole, because you're still kind of a golf first expert, it feels like at this point.
Yeah,
Does this success with Nicole, this you use the word curious to start with, and that curious people use those words. That's what I love about that. So I can see you kind of like, oh, okay, there's some, I can learn this hammer, not just rotationally, what is actually going there. Does this like fuel any kind of like, oh, maybe I'm supposed to go to athletics, or are you still like, okay, I'm flirting with athletics, but it's still golf first and foremost?
yeah. So for me at the time, I was purely an S&C for Nicole, so I wasn't going out to throwing or anything at this time.
Okay.
And I was still like, I'm going to be a weightlifter. I'm a
Yeah. Oh,
qualified
that's right. That's right.
weightlifter,
Because you started doing that. That's right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And so I was sort of training from 3 till 6, and then they would train from kind of 5:30 till 7
Right.
at night. and so Nicole got some good results, and I picked up some more throwers just purely for S&C.
Right.
And so kind of from there, what happened was Nicole and her coach had a big kind of set to, and he was, to put it nicely, he's very French, and his English is not fantastic, and so in his kind of tone, he would, his one of his favorite sayings is "You are shit."
He knew those
Yeah,
English words.
he knew that, and he was sort of like probably, and nowadays kind of coaching, he certainly wouldn't have a job with some of his behaviors. And so Nicole was like, I'm out. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. And she'd got injured, so she was sort of bedridden at the time. And she came to me and said, Mike, will you coach me? Um, and I was sort of like, look, I don't know anything about hammer.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, I really like the way that we work in the gym. I I'm pretty confident you can learn that.
Wow.
And I was sort of like, well,
You're a little bit less confident.
I like, okay. Like she goes, I'm either gonna quit, or if you'll coach me, I'll continue. And I was like, well, hey, like, what's the worst that can happen? You know, it can't get much worse here.
Yeah, you're gonna quit anyway. So if nothing, if it
Yeah,
doesn't get well.
and so about sort of around this time, one of my major mentor, Angus Ross, who some people will know, he's sort of a sprints, jumps coach, power physiologist, S&C for Tom Walsh here. Um, he had sort of become curious about some of the rotational stuff I was doing with the throwers, and he had asked me if I wanted to do a PhD in throws, and in particular throws biomechanics and sort of power physiology, S&C for throws, and I'd gone like, why not? Like he was like, there'll be a scholarship there, and we're really interested in you exploring biomechanics, throws biomechanics, um, and power physiology. He was like, I know you're kind of starting to do some stuff with Nicole. I'm really curious about it for Tom and for the throws program here in New Zealand. And my sort of T's and C's, did a bit of research on Gus, and he'd done some really cool stuff. And I was like, yeah, if you'll supervise me.
Huh.
And so I sort of started this biomechanics PhD journey, and power physiology, kind of still keeping my hand in the S&C stuff, and it sort of fitted with Nicole's stuff. And essentially, I just started reading research, like what do throwers do, and what are the
Two questions. One, when you were growing up, did you ever think you would go in to get a PhD? I don't know. Maybe in New Zealand, everybody has a PhD because that's just your culture. Over here, I barely can spell. Like I have like a high, like, man, PhD. Did you ever even think you'd ever go that route?
nah
That's amazing.
nah. I was never, through school. I was never very good.
Yeah. Wow.
I sort of failed physics at school, which is, there's some irony in that, right? And
Yeah.
English, when I took my English results to my English teacher, um, she essentially said that me passing was a failure of the system, which, you know, which is good. It's kind of some, it's kind of funny, you know. And because I
Wow.
thought, like at this time as well, like when I was at school, I didn't really apply myself because I
Yeah.
thought I was going to be a golfer, right? Like
Oh
I
yeah,
was thinking,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
I'm going to be Tiger Woods. I'm going to make $4-6 million a year. You know,
Right,
I
right,
don't need
right.
English. I
Yeah,
don't need
exactly.
physics. Like,
Yeah. There's a lot of us over here that can relate to that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Uh, okay. When you You said when you started going into the PhD, you started reading a lot about the research. Is there a lot of that available? I'm not sure that I was going to ask, and you're telling the story beautifully here. When someone over here has to coach something that they, if a sprints coach gets thrown into coaching the pole vault, and I've never coached a pole vault. I know sprint mechanics, but I don't know what to do. There are, I mean, handfuls of great. This is what's awesome about our profession is we're so talkative to each other. There are handfuls, maybe hundreds of really knowledgeable pole vault coaches that person could call. That was going to be my first question, but was there like, who did you like your first thing? I got to start coaching throws. I'm going to call someone. You had Gus there, who seems like a pretty good, mentor to rely on too. But you said you started reading into the research. There's like I would have thought there'd have been like maybe one article on specifically throws biomechanics. You make it sound like there's a plethora of options out there.
Yeah, there's 20 or 30 articles in hammer, 20 or 30 in javelin, 20 or 30 in shot put. Yeah, and so my first kind of go to was that, and I suppose as well, I didn't go traditional. The coaching fraternity here is there's a lot of history here, but a lot of that history where I was centered was with the coach, and he felt like Nicole leaving was and coming to me was a real like kick in the teeth.
Yeah.
And so he literally nationally put me on blast. So the first 6 months of our journey was like Nicole would throw 54, and there'd be an email sent out to every coach saying that coaches can't come into the sport, that they are shit. Like,
that's so disappointing. That is bad ego. That is so disappointing to hear. Yeah. It really is, man. Seriously.
And so like I don't really care. Like I mean I knew it was going to happen, right? Like, because prior to that, every time someone threw poorly, it was my fault, and every time they threw well, it was his fault. So, yeah, it just doesn't worry me. Yeah, and so I sort of went to the research to understand what was done, and what biomechanics or what kinematics people needed to exhibit to throw far. And then what was the physiology, what was the muscular physiology needed to drive that to throw further. And so we sort of went down this route of changing Nicole's sort of movement biomechanics, and changing the muscle physiology to fit with the biomechanics. And so she sort of started getting better. She threw 62, then 64, then 66, over kind of probably the next 2 years. And then when she threw 66, that was, I think, maybe the second best all-time performance here in New Zealand. And people sort of started to look at what was going on. And that's where Maddie came to me with her former coach, Walter, and sort of said, like, need to get faster. And my thing was like, well, let's just same process. What biomechanics do you need to exhibit? What's the muscular physiology you need?
So, in caveat, we don't talk X's and O's here because there's a lot of great. First of all, I haven't coached in 20 years myself. Never a throws coach, by the way. But there's a lot of other great podcasts, clinics, things like that. But we do talk about philosophy of coaching. And Mike, what I'm hearing you say, like, I stereotyping a little bit here. Let's do it this way. When a kid goes from high school to college, I think, and I could be dead wrong, maybe it's different in the throws. I'm going to just speak from my experience of a sprints, jumps, and hurdles coach. We tend to think technique wise first, like, okay, what do I need to either change or continue to improve? It's technique first. Maybe secondary is like, oh, they didn't have a very good lifting program in high school, so okay, I can get them stronger, things like that. It feels like because I can't imagine, you tell me if I'm wrong here, in those, say, 2 years as you're going through your PhD and you're going through your, real life PhD of, learning with the Nicole
Yeah.
here, I hesitate to think that you had picked up all the technique side of which hammer, oh my gosh, one of the most technical events out there. So these improvements were less on maybe the technical aspect of, the wind and, the apex of the ball. I'm talking stuff I've heard a throws coach say before, and more on the physiological, I'm sorry, the biomechanical, the body side of it, of the rotation and things like that. Is that accurate or?
It's probably it didn't take long to figure out the biomechanics that we needed to exhibit.
Mhm.
And then there was some big rocks, right? Like um, things for Nicole were simple stuff like length, creating length and rhythm, like just really simple kind of concepts of length, rhythm, connection with the implement. And I suppose one of the reasons that I didn't find it too hard was that like the biomechanics are actually relatively simple, um, and you can interpret them how you want, but it's actually pretty simple. Um, the so having like a biomechanical model, and most people out there will crucify me for that, but to clarify, I'm a biomechanist by trade. That's what my PhD is in. But and I suppose this is sort of off on a little tangent. When we talk about models have bandwidths, um, and so a biomechanical model will have a large bandwidth to it. There'll be a standard deviation there, and I guess that's on each kinematic item. So foot contacts,
Okay.
like azimuth angles, they'll all have biomechanical bandwidth to them. There'll be a parameter where you need to be within for each one, and some of them will interrelate and work together. Um, and so within that, how someone fits those together is what people call technique. So and generally what
Okay.
most, in my experience, what most non biomechanist coaches do is they pick stylistic traits.
Right. Yes.
And
Yes.
a,
Yes. Yes. Mhm.
yeah, and a stylistic trait is how someone moves between those things, not necessarily the kinematic values, but how they stitch them together. Like kind of like if you and I were to paint, we can be given the same colors, but how we weave them together gives us the style of the painting. Um, Yet the kinematic values, the paint colors are the same.
Right. Right. Right.
And so often we pick stylistic traits. So the actual movement mechanics, the biomechanics that someone needs to exhibit are relatively simple. And so we took this kind of approach of like, people, you need to do this for this reason. Let's shift this towards this. And and the physiology probably for those 2 years, like it probably got a little bit better. But you've also got to have the kinks in the pipe need to be sorted out so the water can flow, right? And so the power generated in the gym needs to go through a pipe that's aligned, hence the kinematic. So it was probably some sort of togetherness. And for where Nicole was in her career, probably she needed that like the over biomechanicalized approach, because she was kind of a little way away from that. And like it took maybe 6 months for me to kind of figure out some of the big rocks and certainly identify some of the big rocks. I had a few existing hammer throwers come out from time to time just to go like what do you think? And Dale Stevenson, Tom's coach, send him videos like I'm seeing this. Is this a thing? Um, and the probably the biggest thing that I did early in Nicole's career was unpack how, like, just simple stuff. How many throws per week are you taking? And some of the, like, a lot of the research suggested that you need you need to take probably between 80 and 120 throws a week. That's kind of a thing. And
Is that because, is that part of, have you heard of the 10,000 hours rules?
yeah,
Is it a little bit part of that, or is that more to do with, like, you know, if you try to do 200, the body's going to break, and if you don't do 40, well, you're not doing enough, or both?
there's probably some, the 10,000 hour rule probably sits over here, and the not enough rule sits over here. And like, if you put it through the logic test, to be good at something, you've got to do it. And Nicole's throwing volumes, maybe she would have been hitting between 20 and 40 throws a week.
Oh,
yeah. And there was some historical perspective from the old French coach that he believed that as you got better, you did less. It's cool when you're an 86-meter thrower, but it's probably not so.
I was about to say, maybe in some cases that is appropriate, right? But you're talking about the 1% of already 1%ers, right? So when you're talking about the all of hammer throwers, that probably doesn't work in general. But again, maybe it works for the 1% of the 1% there. So yeah.
Yeah. So so we just threw more. So she probably, part of that is like taking her training volume from 40 to 70 per week over a period of time.
Right.
Probably just better. Yeah. And I think the other thing that's probably understated within that is, and just going back a little bit. So I sat down with Nicole when we first started and said, like, what do you expect of me? And she goes, well, I just expect you not to bully me. And I was like, and I sort of laughed it off. Like, at the time I was like, oh, that's a given, mate, you know, like, kind of. And she goes, no, like, I expect you not to bully me.
That kind of breaks my heart, actually.
Yeah. And I was like, and like, I sort of turned around to her, I was like, Jesus, mate, like, how long have you been here for? And she goes, well, that's what it's been like. And I was like, wow. I was like, well, like that's a given. Like, genuinely, that's a given. So what do you want to do in your career? And she goes, I just want to throw again. And I was like, well, like, I think you're capable of more. I don't know what you're capable of. Like, I don't know the sport. So
yeah,
I don't actually know what you're capable
I was waiting for you to say. I was like, dude, how could you even know? But
yeah,
you're an adaptation theorist, though, so you knew, like, oh, I think you can get better. That might be 1 centimeter, it might be 100 meters. I don't know, but I feel like you can get more. Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so, so I think part of that improvement was just related to the fact that, like, we just had a good time and we just kind of tried to figure it out. Like, and that was the thing. Like, let's just figure it out. Yeah. And let's start somewhere tangible. Like, let's start with some biomechanics. Like, are your foot contacts in the right place? Are the azimuth angles right? Okay, those are like hammer 101. Is the low point and the high point in the right place? Okay, cool. How long are you? Okay, sweet. Like, those are easy things that kind of like hammer 101. And that didn't take long for me to figure out, even from knowing nothing. And so yeah, we started kind of rolling along, and as we kind of went through this, I started to pick up more and more athletes, and Maddie was actually the second athlete I coached.
Wow. Dude.
Yeah. And so 16, maybe 17-year-old Maddie came in, and she just goes, like, I want to be faster, I want to throw far. And I was like, I hadn't coached a shot putter before.
Yeah.
Like, but I knew the biomechanics. So by this stage, I'd done a significant amount of research and shot put, discus, hammer biomechanics.
You know, we know that I hesitate to say the end game. What I mean, we know today Maddie wins the silver medal at the Olympics. As 16, 17 years old, was she really good when she came to you? Average? What, for her age and stage?
So I think at 17 years old, she'd thrown like maybe 15 low.
Okay, that doesn't sound, that's not good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to insult. Here's what I'm trying to figure out. There's this, it's not even a debate, this bad thinking that really good coaches get really good kids and they don't develop athletes. And so, like, to use the 100-meter dash as an example, over here, the best colleges will get kids out of high school that are running, some are running 10 flat. Heck, we got a couple of high schoolers running sub 10, which is crazy. But, they'll get kids out of high school that are running, say, 10:10 to 10:30. That's really good, right? As you go down, there's kids that are running 10:90. Heck, there's kids running 11:30 that are also going to college, different levels, right? And invariably, someone who ran 11 flat at a high school through good coaching will run 10:1. And that's development. And that's awesome. No one's taking, like, bravo. You took a kid from 11, 10:1, you developed. The part where it starts getting wrong is they'll look at the coach that gets the 10:20 kid who runs 10 flat, maybe, after 2 year, 3 or whatever, and says, see, you didn't develop. You're not a developer. Why don't you take the 11 flat kids and make them 10:1? That's development. It's like, wait a minute, taking a kid from 10:2 to 10 flat, that's hard. It's a different hardness than from 11 flat to 10:1, which is also hard, by the way. So what I was wondering with Maddie specifically, like, did you get her where she was already, like, she's world junior champion or whatever, but I know you developed her, or did you do the more, I hate to say, traditional development of, like, oh yeah, she was average and, we got really good. That's what I'm trying to figure, I'm just wondering development
Yeah,
side.
I suppose like I haven't really been around enough to know what good or average at that age is
It's
like.
a great point. That's a good point.
And so and I suppose with that, like Maddie had some significant biomechanical holes.
Hmm.
Whether you like however you classify that, I'm not sure. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess on that, like my bias here in New Zealand, we don't recruit. We don't have a population to recruit. Like
Right.
the women's shot put final at our national championship will have maybe 8 people in it.
Right. Right. Right.
And there's like when I say 8 people, there isn't another 6 or 8 people sitting underneath that.
Mm.
Um, so you kind of have people come to you and like I quite enjoy puzzles and performance puzzles. So I'll get on board with programs that they want to do something really cool. Like I don't really care who you are. If you come and you go, I want to do this. Like I kind of see that as challenging to try and figure it out. And the more challenging, the cooler, right? Like doing something that someone thought you couldn't do and doing that's a really cool puzzle. And in our realm, that's a really cool sports science puzzle. So like if you're Usain Bolt, you run 9.8, 9.6, and someone goes, like you go to someone, they go, I want to win an Olympic medal, and you're Usain Bolt. Like I don't find that exciting. I don't really care about that, to be honest. Like, but if you're 10.5 guy and you go, I want to win an Olympic medal, like I'm like, oh,
Right.
this could be fun. Like this is to do that. That's exciting.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
So, and that was Nicole, right? Like, Nicole was as far away from being a high performance athlete,
Right.
probably psychologically, and not necessarily physically, but certainly there were a lot of holes there. And so that was really quite cool, a cool project. And Maddie, she has some cool goals, and so my entry criteria is 2 questions. Like what do you want to do, and what are you willing to do to get there? And
What do you, so let's break that down. What are you looking for in answers? Because I know you're not looking like for a specific, like, oh, if they say they want to win a gold medal, boom, we're doing it. There's got to be some like the mentality of the answer. What are you looking for in those two questions? Because I think that's something important that coaches can like learn from, and maybe here in the States, with their recruiting, maybe that's something they can learn from recruiting. Take us through those two sentences and what you're looking for in a response.
yeah, I'm looking for something that excites me.
Mm,
Because if I'm gonna sort of pour my sort of being into what you want to do, like I've got to be on board with that. And so if I'm not on board with it, um, I'll probably say, hey, I'm not the right person for you. And the first question, what do you want to do? There's 100 answers. There's and I don't even know what the right answer is until they say something, and I go, that's kind of cool.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so it might be a 30-year-old person that wants to get into the top 50 in the world. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you've never done this before and you want to be top 30 in the world. And so
But it has to be, in your circumstance, sports performance based, not, hey, I want you to work with me because I just want to get in shape. But
yeah,
nothing's wrong with that, by the way. But I'm just saying, in your situation, is that more of like, yeah, not really
yeah,
me?
that's just not for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it's not for me, I'll just refer you on to someone.
Mhm.
I'm sure I've got someone who that fits with.
Right,
Um,
right.
and so and the second answer is like, I'm willing to do anything. Um,
Yeah.
and and anything in my world, just to clarify, that is like, it's around work. What are you prepared to commit to this?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it has to be within the rules, but anything is like, if it's going to be, so for example, Nicole, we electro stimmed Nicole,
Hmm.
and she was like, cool, like I signed up for this.
Mm-hmm.
And we electro stimmed her on the back of some really sort of tight research. And
Mm-hmm.
I went out and brought a stimulator that could achieve certain frequencies that would elicit certain adaptations in a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And it was painful, like really, really painful. And
And it
and
was
it
painful.
and at certain times, so often as well, I suppose, around that sort of stuff, most people most people think they will do anything to get to their goal. Like, most people will think that.
Mm-hmm.
And at certain times there are vetting experiences, where I, as support staff, and I class myself as support staff because, like, for Maddie, Nicole, I work within a team of people that are great, and so I'm just one of the team. I'm certainly not the top of the mountain here. I'm just a piece of a cog in the wheel. Um, and so there are certain moments where you get vetted, and you get vetted on what you originally said, and at that moment, I if you don't live up to your end of the bargain, I will back out. And
Mm.
I've been known to go, hey, yeah, this is the end of the road for us. Um,
What I'm kind of hearing, Mike, with that question and that philosophy, really, I keep hearing in my head as you're telling that, I keep hearing the word trust. That it's that there's trust. Like, hey, if we're going to be in this together, the team and you're part of that team as the athlete, we're going to do some things, whether it's STEM, we're going to lift so many days a week, and you've got to trust that we've got your best at heart. And
yeah,
if you start, like, let's say lifting, let's say you guys are like, we're going to lift 5 days a week, and it becomes, well, on Tuesday, I gotta leave early. I don't need to lift on a Tuesday. And hey, Thursday I'm going to cut short because it's my significant other's birthday, and it's like, well, hey, we're supposed to be working together here. You said you wanted to do X. Well, we've got to get this done to do that. Yeah, I just kept hearing that word trust. What does the role of trust play for you as a coach and this team and the athlete relationship?
Yeah, I mean, and you kind of spot on there. It's a shared journey for us, and so if you come to the party, I'll come to the party.
Hmm.
And so for for example, Nicole was full-time working, and so the hours we had to train were from 5 a.m. till 7 a.m. and then from 5 p.m. till 7 p.m.
Wow.
You turn up, I'll turn up. Absolutely. Like, you go home, you rest, recover, I'll go home, I'll read and research,
Hmm.
because that's my equivalent to those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you commit to it, I'll commit to it. If you're buying implements to train with, I'll buy stuff to elicit what we need to elicit in terms of like electro stims, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I invested in their career. Like, I brought the majority of the training equipment that we used because we needed it. If you're going to buy new shoes, you need medicine balls. Like, I'll invest in the stuff we need to do. Um, and so that was kind of our bargain, is that, and if I felt like you weren't meeting me there, it doesn't really matter how good you are, like, you're out. And so the first couple of athletes I had, and I carried this through my S&C career, is that I had a couple of really good discus throwers early in my career, and they wanted to train early in the morning. I'd turn up, they wouldn't. Like, I'm out. Like, there's
I think a lot of American coaches has heard that and said, "Oh, good, it's not just us." We think, American kids are. I'm not speaking specifically on those individuals, but not showing up at the time that you said you're going to show up. There's some character issues there, but it's like, here we think as, oh, it's the American kids we're lazy. We have our iPads and our iPhones and stuff like that, and that's all they want to do. And it's like, it's maybe a universal problem. Like,
yeah,
everybody has people who have these issues out there. So it's good that it's not just us. We like, being part of a group.
yeah, and so I dropped a few athletes early in my
Wow.
career,
Yeah.
and
At a time where you maybe couldn't, air quotes there, meaning you needed as much like social
yeah,
proof as you could, right? And you stuck to your character.
yeah, and that was just like, if you want to do what you want to do, you hold up your end of the bargain, and let's get excited for it. And if you're excited, you'll turn up. If you're not
Mm-hmm.
excited, you won't. Um, and so yeah, I just was like, hey, I'm out. Like, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
That's not for me. I've got Nicole. I had a squad of 4 or 5 others. They turn up. Like, I'm
Yeah.
investing my time over there. They
Yeah.
want to do this. And these guys were like, I had the 2 top ranked at the time for S&C, and I had a whole lot of others that were not top ranked even nationally. Um, like, I'm over here. This
Yeah.
is cool. This excites me. We can do something.
Isn't that hard to do? The equivalent over here would be I have a high school team and I've got a stud, whatever event, doesn't matter. And we say the bus is leaving at 3 and 3:05, kid's not there. Do you do what you said? I will leave you. I'm going to ride with those who show up. Or, man, that's my stud. I'll give him 5 more minutes. It's hard based on the athleticism of the kid. Let's be real here. We are, again, this is air quotes, as good as our best kids are. That's it sounds universal a little bit here, actually, not just American. And it's hard to actually stick to your guns, to stick to your character and say, hey man, we agreed that we'd be here at 5 a.m. and you're just not showing up. I know you're really good, but you know what? That's not what I'm here for.
Yeah, I guess, like, for me, um, like, I don't care about
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Like, I'm, and I guess as well, there's probably some stuff that sits behind some of those decisions. I think some coaches feel like they, and by all means, no offense to I'm just generalizing here. Some coaches that have failed athletes in sports, they feel like they need a good athlete at the top to validate that they could have been good.
Yes.
I don't need that.
Yeah,
If I don't come from track and field,
that's what I was wondering. That I was going to ask. I wonder if it's because you didn't grow up in track. Because I wonder if the inverse was true. Let's say you went on, and maybe you still do. Maybe you went on in full bore into golf and golf coaching and those kind of things. If you know, I'm not saying you are who you are, because there's a little bit of like, you know, your character's your character, whether you're a track coach, golf coach, professor, your character is who is with you inside of you. But to what you said there is validation. There is ego. Ego is not bad. Bad ego is bad. Ego makes us want to be a better track coach, a better professor, a better spouse, etc. So there is a validation. You know, having PhD is a validation in that field, right? I mean, that is a validation in certain fields, right? So I wondered if you had grown up as, you know, track and athletics is my love and my baby, if there would be your character. I think is still your character, but I wonder if there would be a little bit of gray lines maybe in that. I just wonder. I don't know that it would. I just wonder.
I think there's the possibility there, but for me, I want to see something cool happen, and cool doesn't happen if you don't live up to your end of the bargain. Like, and cool is subjective on our scale, and so we had a saying with Nicole is stay true to who you are, and so we had our scale, and just like me and Maddie have our scale, and so what anyone else thinks is good, that's cool. They can think that, but what we think is good on our scale is what we will celebrate. And so if you want to see what you wanted to happen, you've got to turn up, and if I want to see that happen, I've got to turn up. And so that's where that original entry question, like, if I'm excited about it, I'll turn up and I'll do what I can. I'll do anything to get within my field to get you where you need to go. And so I've got no problem with not working with people that don't live up to the end of the bargain. And I think as well, some of that stems back to my upbringing. Like my father was pretty hard. You work for what you've got.
You said he was a farmer, dude. There's something, a lot of people automatically, a little bit of assumptions of like, oh, bro, that's a tough life. It's a farm. I lived on a farm for 1 year. That's all I could take. I was out. That is some tough, even the easiest of easy farming is tough. And having kids, you're automatically, you're part of the business. That's I mean, it used to be back in the day, farmers had more kids so they could work on the farm, for crying out loud. So that's so tough. Absolutely.
And so dropping people and them not living up to the end of the bargain, like, I'm okay with that. And that said, there's a conversation that happens prior to that. Right. Okay, do you know you signed up for this? Is that now not the case? And if they kind of go, oh, because some of these guys are young, like they say these throwaway comments, and sometimes when those moments of vetting come out, that's when you have the opportunity to see, and sort of the old adage is actions speak louder than words, and someone's actions towards or away from what they originally signed up with is sort of what I vet them on. And so yeah, we had some moments around that, and that sort of stems to my sort of coaching philosophy, that like we're just trying to figure this out. It's what I've had to live on, I suppose, not coming from track.
It seems you're describing a much more collaborative style of coaching, where, you know, there's lots of different ways to, I don't know if you guys have this, now that I want to say to someone who I'm not sure knows the saying, it does sound stupid. Have you heard the saying, more than one way to skin a cat?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Forgive me for being ignorant of, like, of course, like you have, I don't know. It just, when I started saying it out loud, I was like, that's kind of a dumb statement, but there's many ways to do many different ways to do things and have success. there's in coaching, its simplest form, you can have a collaborative or you can have an authoritarian. You seem to be describing a much more like, hey, we're in this together. And if we're not, I'm not the guy that's going to yell and make you do it. We'll go find something else. And by the way, I'll help you go find something else too, by the way, but we're not going to do it together because we're not doing it together. So much more collaboration. Did that, and maybe this does stem back to the farm life, that kind of attitude is, it's usually exhibited. Like I saw it growing up from either teachers or family or maybe the opposite. I saw it hardcore, the other side, non-collaborative, and was like, that ain't, I do not want to grow up that way. Do you remember kind of where like collaboration and teamwork, like how that was modeled, church, school, home?
Yeah, and to be honest, a collaborative approach probably wasn't a thing that I experienced generally. And that said, I suppose like in my early days of S&C, I was full authoritarian because that's the weightlifting community, right? And I suppose through the first couple of years of my journey, like when you start in a field that you know nothing about, like Nicole knew more about hammer than I did. Right. No shit, I didn't even know what it was. And so you have no option. But then as I got through my research, the sort of areas of research I started to dive into were sort of skill acquisition, biomechanics, and S&C, because coming back to my motives, I didn't want to give someone poor information or set up a poor journey that could have been avoided. So I got stuck into some of the skill acquisition stuff. And if you want someone to do something exceptional, at a certain point, it becomes an expression of themselves. And so you have to empower them and allow them to fail. And we learn from mistakes. So allowing people to make mistakes and being allowed to make mistakes myself, like the groups I work within, like mistakes are okay as long as you learn from them. And so it has to be a shared journey to get somewhere. And you have to trust that like these young guys coming up, they've got some knowledge, like they know some stuff. They might not have the direction sorted out, and often they don't. But you have to realize that you don't know everything, and I certainly don't know anything. My role is to facilitate them to get better, and part of that facilitation, like they're a part of the puzzle, and the environment you set up, the conversations you have are a trusting relationship. And I suppose to think that you know how they're going to do something is largely ignorant. Because with that is, if most people are basing that off what they did, and that would be like me saying to you, I know what a steak tastes like to you. Like I don't, and I can help you shape your description of that, but I can't describe it for you. Right. So it has to be this shared journey, and my role, like the shared journey is towards some biomechanical parameters, but your concept of that, how you describe that, is actually how you describe it, and it's you that has to change it. So I have to help you change it. Trying to change it for you, or going, and this is one of the sort of, as an adjunct, one of the things I have with cues is like I can direct you, like what does that feel like to you, but for me to tell you a cue, how you interpret that language will be different. And so you might understand it, but your understanding of the interpretation is so far away from my interpretation that we end up with some sort of clash. And so it has to be a shared journey.
How do you, that's another, okay, that's important. Let's dig in there a little bit. because I can, my own experience, I can relate to that. Like I can, I set a cue. They said, yep, I understand it. And boy, we couldn't have been farther apart. And I would get frustrated. Like, hey, I explained it this way. And by the way, I've explained it to 100 athletes before, and they've all done really well. You agreed that you understood it, and you couldn't have been. How do you close that gap?
I suppose you you have to sit with them, and so I'll sort of tell a story here. So I worked with a shot putter kind of in mid 2019, the world class shot putter here, and the first couple of months of our journey, I coached him for 18 months, 2 years ish, through to Tokyo. And the first couple of months of our journey, I just asked them things, literally sitting with them, going like, what do you think about here? And
Like about the event?
about the event,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And this, like how do you describe this? Like, what does this mean to you? And what I picked up was his internal model, and give him mine. I needed to understand his, because I've got to start from where he is and mold what he is towards the biomechanics, right? And so some language.
Who I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. I think this is super, super valuable for people to hear and understand, because this is coaching. It's cue and response, cue and response. Whose responsibility is it? Is it the athlete's responsibility to hear your, I hesitate to say interpretation, but your story of what you're trying to get through and mold and change? Or is it the coach's responsibility to hear the athlete's age and stage where they are and to mold their cueing or coaching towards it? So what I mean, I want to double click into that a little bit here. Whose responsibility, when you're sitting down and having these discussions about what they're seeing and feeling during maybe different stages of the events, whose responsibility is it? Is it the athletes to change? Is it the athletes' responsibility to change, hearing how what you're trying to communicate and change their thought process and obviously the movement, body position, things like that? But is it their responsibility to change, or is it the coach's responsibility to change their cueing, not their belief in what they're trying to get to cut, but how they communicate? Who's got the majority of the responsibility here?
I suppose the journey there is, you've got to connect with them. So they have to change themselves. They've come to you to help with that change. You have to connect the language to them. So you first have to understand the language that they use, and some of the background of that. And coming back to Nicole, so Nicole, all the coach would talk about was low point, and every time I mentioned low point initially, she thought of him, filled with anger, would just kind of shut down emotionally. And so we flipped that to high point, because for every low point, there's a high point. And so you have to understand what some of that language means to them, and how they interpret literally the English language. So I don't think there's a responsibility. Some of the beliefs you have to work on, like behaviors are commonly driven by beliefs. And so so for example, this kid believed that when the left foot got down, he tried to get the ball in the hand and shot. And so he was like, you know what? That's how you push hard. Get it in the hand, you can push on it. If it's in the neck, you can't push on it. And that's a relatively logical conclusion, right? But it doesn't fit within a kinematic sequence. And so before trying to shift some of the stuff he had at the front, I needed to understand why he did what he did. And so then before trying to shift that, I needed to shift the belief. And so you said about shifting the belief, then he will shift himself because he no longer believes in that. And older athlete, that'll take longer. So you temper some of the patience. And so it's about understanding all of how that kind of weave of belief, cueing systems, interpretation fit together. And often I flip that back on them, like, what does it mean to you? I kind of want to see this happen. What does that mean to you? How does that come to fruition in movement? Like, does it make sense to you? And so then if they're like, yeah, makes total sense, I just can't do it. And usually at that point I'll add in the yet.
Yeah.
And so we talk about it, and I think I stole it from Dale Stevenson. There's only a couple of things you can really control, is attention and intention. And the intention, the only part of that the coach can control is the clarity in that. The accuracy of interpretation, just checking in on it. The attention, that's on them. Like, that's part of the deal. You want to do anything? Well, chuck your phone away, chuck Instagram away, chuck it all away, and let's tune in here. And if you're not tuned in here, go do some of your practices, come back, tune in. And so with that, my role as a coach through that process is that if I'm clear that they have if we and I'm clear that they have a clear intention, most of these guys have good attention. So my role from there is to observe. And so really, like, I'm potentially one of the most underwhelming coaches in the world, because a story around that is, in 2020 I had a squad of 7. I've only actually coached 7 or 8 at track and field throwers, and I had 2 qualified, 1 qualified at World Juniors, and 6 I think were in the top 50 in the world. So we were like pretty decent as a squad. There was 2 or 3 within the top 34 in the world, and 2 at Tokyo. And so a few people kind of were like, well, what are you doing? And one of them came out to a session to watch me coach. And so I rock up there, and there's a sort of 6 people, five people throwing, I think. A couple of hammer throwers, a couple of discus throwers. And so I kind of rock up, I'm in my flip-flops, shorts on, t-shirt, like, and part of that, there's a little bit to that. So the authoritarian aspect is like, if I turn up formal and stuff, people kind of see me as an authoritarian figure, but like I'm just trying to help you. So I'm on your level. You're good at this, I'm good at this. That's even. Like, most of these guys are young kids with some knowledge and are vast areas. So I rock up, flip-flops, shorts, singlet, and with my coffee. And so I go around to everyone. I'm like, how's the body today? You clear on what you're after? Yep. So that takes maybe 2 minutes. And then I walk out to 70 meters. And this kid's with me, and we stand at 70 meters. And I think on a couple of occasions, like, all I said was like, there it is. and we're talking like maybe probably within that session across all those throwers, maybe 150 throws were taken. But the majority of the conversation was like that video you sent me was funny to one of the athletes, or like one of the kids I was coaching was big into his like cooking. He's like, Mike, check this out. And I'm like, mate, that looks tasty. and this was an hour and a half of throwing, and so the and there's some science to that. And so one of the most powerful aspects of learning is forgetting. So I generally try and disrupt people between throws. And so one of the most powerful aspects of learning is actually the forgetting process. So and just to dig in a little bit of kind of random science here is generally people perform well when movements are in what we call working memory. Or like if you learn a phone number, you go 02755 whatever, and you just repeat it. You pick up your coffee and then you go, what was that phone number? The process of remembering that again from there is what deepens the retention of it. And there's some good science from a guy called Robert Bjork, or Professor Robert Bjork. And so while they walk out, I'll try and, like, we might have a short discussion, like might be like, yeah, you got close. And they'll know what close is based on what we're trying to get. And the rest of it, I'm like, so how's the dog? Or like, and you're deepening the learning process by disrupting it, even though it appears less professional.
Yeah.
And part of my attire is they feel like people feel comfortable with me because, like, I'm just one of you. Like, I'm just trying to figure this out just like you are. I'm trying to figure out how you get better, just like you're trying to figure out how you get better. I don't have the answers. So like I'm pretty casual, and I'm pretty open and transparent about that. And I think the other part is as so when I got a PhD in throws biomechanics, people viewed me as I had the answer, and so I actively sort of engaged in normalizing myself. I'm just one of you. I have a PhD, not the answer.
Yeah. They're looking for, we're all looking for the magic pill. So wait a minute, you've got a PhD, give it to me, Mike. What is the one thing? And it's like, yeah, there is no one thing. Right.
And so I had to normalize their perception of me via like attire, how I talk to them, like and like I enjoy the same things that they enjoy. Like funny videos. If it's funny, it's funny. Like if it's good food, it's good food. Most people like know that I drink coffee, and so I think some of that is normalizing that, and like as you go through that journey, you sort of realize, like, well, for me is I'm just helping you. Like I don't have the answers. We together will try and figure this out. Now, if that idea comes from you or me, I don't care. Like, but if you can't voice your opinion because you feel a certain way, then we need to have a conversation about that. And at times that's become problematic.
You're not going to let that be the governor. You're going to take that part off. It's not going to be because of me, because I express authoritarianism or all knowingness. I'm gonna strip that away. Those excuses are gone.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that I won't question really directly.
Right.
So
right.
Like, if you come up with an idea, I'm going to vet it.
Yeah.
If I come up with an idea, you need to vet it. Like, and so my role.
I think that's where we, generalization here, maybe lose the sight of it. I think a lot of time, I think there's lots of coaches that would say, hey, if you come up with an idea, it might be the right idea. I'm going to vet it. I'm going to see if it checks all the boxes, where it's, whether you're biomechanical background or technical background, whatever.
Yeah.
I think we lose the punchline when it's the other way around, when it's like, hey, if I have an idea, you need to vet that as well. Meaning you need to have some responsibility in your own training. I think again, big generalization here. I think that's where we like, no, that's where there is a little bit of authoritarianism of like, hey, if I come up with an idea, I say to do something, you do it blindly. You don't ask questions back. I think we lose that sometimes in coaching.
And our thing, like from the start, has been, because I don't have any prior experience. My role is really filtering. So bringing in information and filtering it for you, and some of that as well. I think, like, commonly some of that, like, non-willingness to question is perceptual, and so we have conversations around like, hey, you got to vet this. Like I can be wrong, um, and I have been wrong. Like, I mean, it's in, I think, it must have been like 2017 or 2018. Like, we tried to do something with Nicole's periodization, and she went from 62 to 56 in 4 weeks.
Oops.
and she's like, yeah, you got that wrong. And I'm like, yeah, I got that real wrong. Like, I'm sorry about that. Like, but she also goes, but we didn't know. We both agreed, valid input, got it wrong. And we've done the same thing. Like Maddie's like, yeah, I don't think that was a good idea. And I'm like, no, wasn't a good idea. And I've had heaps of other kids that have done the same. Like, hey, Mike, that ain't working. I'm like, yeah. I mean, we didn't know it wasn't going to work, but we're okay with it not working in pursuit of it working. And so, like, those things are sweet. Like, people jamming it in the cage. Like, we had a rule, is if you're going to jam it in the cage, like, jam it in there. Like, it's got to go on top. I'm okay with it. Like, if we're getting after it, I sort of said to Nicole, like, I'll travel anywhere in the world to see 6 throws get jammed in the cage. But if you control one down the middle, no thanks. Like, we're trying to do something here. And jamming it in the cage in pursuit of that exceeds controlling it, trying to avoid it.
Right.
And so part of that is a little bit, like, it allows them freedom. Like, if Maddie throws 6 fouls, if she's going after it, like, that's cool. Like, 6 fouls in pursuit of it is the chance to see something happen that we haven't seen before.
Right.
Like I'll sit there and go, yeah, I'll just sit there. That's cool.
And can't you coach off that better? Like, I was a jumps coach, and I would always tell athletes, like, on your 8 step or whatever step we were on, you jump. That's what you've been conditioned to do. If you're a foot over or a foot behind, I don't care. You jump, because I can then make an adjustment. If you chop or overstride, I don't know what to do at that point. I don't know where you really were. So if Maddie or Nicole is doing everything that you guys have worked together and topped it and worked through and talked about, and you put it in the cage, or, she fouls in the shot, but it's like, oh, okay, well, I see where the mistake happened. I see how you fouled. I can correct that. We can talk about that. But if you, I can't think of the example what was you for throw, but you said control it down the middle. If I'm like, okay, I'm going to take it a little easy so I can get this one down the middle. Well, what did that really do for us? I don't. There's nothing to correct off of that. Yeah. It makes it easier to coach off of.
And sometimes I think as well, we're like, as coaches, and again, generalizing, we don't appreciate that, like, right on the edge of total catastrophe is total success.
Yeah.
And if we want these, like, if I'm true to my kind of inclusion criteria of, I want to see something exceptional happen, I have to be okay with seeing failure happen, and be comfortable that I know how that fits into what we're trying to achieve. And so I kind of describe it to them like, if we go to the racetrack and I give you a Ferrari, Like if you want to drive a lap PB, you'll probably crash, and you'll crash and you'll crash and you'll crash until you don't. And when you don't crash with the same attitude that you crashed with, you'll drive a PB. There'll be a lap PB there. Like, and then we'll go through that same journey again of crashing and crashing and crashing. But we're starting from this lap PB and we're trying to get to here.
Right.
And we'll crash in between and then we'll hit it. And we'll do the same thing on the way up.
Yeah.
And so for me, like I'm really okay with 6 fouls, with whatever it is, with missing finals, with like I don't really care, because we're in pursuit of something that's on our scale.
Right.
And so if you crash, just make sure it's in pursuit of getting there. Like that's cool.
You know, no, you're good. Real lesson in that. I think about it in a relay team, you know, early in the season, run until you pass that baton. If you're out of the zone, you're out of the zone. Who cares? You know, sometimes we'll say it here in the States, you know, who cares if you win the Tiddlywinks Invitational in March? Do you want to win nationals in June? Well, we got time. Who cares if we win early? We got to win late. And if you run through the zone, I can correct that. If you pull up just to get the baton through, well, again, I don't know what to do with that. Mike, as we start to wrap up here, how long, let's talk a little bit about your experience with Maddie. You said she came to you around 15, 16 years old. How long ago?
Yeah, 16, 17.
16, 17. How long ago was that?
7 or 8 years ago.
Okay. And so we know the end result of what happened this year in Paris. You also mentioned you were in Tokyo. Was Tokyo your first Olympics?
Yes. Yeah.
What was that like? Because, you know, typically I'm talking to someone who grew up like dreaming of going to the Olympics. I don't think the Olympics are a big deal in the golf world, even though I think we have it in the Olympics, or we used to have it or whatnot. What was that like at your first Olympics when you walked into the stadium, or, you know, the first time you go to practice? You know, for us, we think of it's like, oh my gosh, I have arrived. We talked about validation. What was that like the first time you walked into Tokyo, whether it was practice or the actual competition time? What was that like to know that, man, I'm here? I don't want to say you've arrived. You don't seem like the kind of guy that would be talking that way, but there is the little bit, and Tokyo's a little exceptional, no fans in the stands and things like that. But you helped someone get to the Olympics. What was that like the first time the realization set in when you walked in?
Yeah, I was in Doha as well, so I had 2 shot putters in Doha. And so when I got to Tokyo, wasn't that surprising? And I suppose like in those settings, I'm a glorified spectator. Because if I need to do something there, I screwed up 6 months ago, or we screwed up 6 months ago, and and so I don't really probably I guess, and this might be sort of frustrate some people that want to be there, is I guess I don't really have too much weight in the Olympics or world champs, etc. And a lot of that comes back to, like, a lot of the kids I'm working with are trying to do things that are either there or not. And so if their target is there, then I've got weight in it. If it's not, then I don't really have weight in it. So, for example, Nicole wanted to throw over 70 meters, and she did that and qualified for Eugene. But seeing her throw 70 meters in New Zealand was more impactful on me, and I was more proud of that than I was seeing her throw in Eugene and Commonwealth Games. And that still is probably one of the highlights of my career, is seeing someone come from here to go to there. That's our scale.
And the first one. I mean,
yeah, it's kind of funny. And then there's been a raft of others in between that have done sort of similar stuff. So the Olympics didn't hold too much value for me personally, and too much weight. For Maddie, it's where we see Maddie. It's where you'll see Like, she's an exceptional young lady that just loves that stuff, and she loves the moment. And so for me, it's exciting because it's a time when we get to see what we've done. like we're confident that she's going to turn up. and so she's thrown a PB at every major since Tokyo. And so it's sort of where we get to see what she's good for, or that's where we will see her do something exceptional. So for me, that's exciting. So like, I'm kind of excited to see what we've done, but I'm also like, there's a role there for me to fulfill with what I need to do to allow, or to create an environment that allows her to do that. So if I'm nervous, if I'm a certain way, then I might detract from that. So I'm quite aware of how I operate in those settings. And like that's like we love those events, but we love them because it gives that kind of it gives us that environment that she thrives on. And so it's a real exciting time, but not necessarily the event itself, if that makes sense.
So similar question. I'm assuming, this may be a bad assumption, was Maddie your first athlete that medaled at the Olympics?
Yes. Yeah.
So similar question, and I feel like you are going to let us all down, just like you did, because we're all like, I guarantee you, every listener right now was like, what do you mean against? It's the Olympic. I mean, over here, it is the be all end all for athletics, for track and field. So what about when the dust settles and Maddie wins a silver freaking medal? That's huge. Did you just go get another coffee? I mean, how did that feel?
No, I think one of the it's certainly a neat moment, but as well, it's important to understand that she threw further to win a medal. So she went in with a 1960 PB into that campaign, and we ended up with like 1986 or something. So for us, that's really exciting that she's progressing along the journey towards where we're trying to be.
So are you kind of telling us that if she would have gotten fifth but thrown 1980, better than her 1960 PB coming in, you guys would have been all hunky-dory?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
What if she'd have thrown, so then the inverse is she throws 1940 and gets silver or gold? It would have been a little like,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're all about pushing the envelope of the body. I'm saying of the body, but in their specific event, it is all about that PB.
It's our scale.
Yeah.
And so the top of our scale, and like, it's Maddie's prerogative to share that, and so I'm not going to share her scale. But it's our scale.
Yeah.
And so if she's progressing towards that, that is cool. Like, that is exciting.
All right, this next question, because of how you just answered that, you might punt on it. I'm going to ask it anyway. So there were studies done specifically on medalists, and I think they did all sports, not necessarily athletics, and that out of the three medalists, gold, silver, and bronze, the one that was the most disappointed, you would think would be the bronze, because they only
but it's the silver.
It's the silver, because the silver says, oh man, if I'd have just done one little more thing, I could have won gold. The bronze says, oh boy, I made one little mistake and I'm not even on this podium. So they're just ecstatic to be, it's almost like they're just happy to be there, type of thing. Did you, and again, because the way you answered that, he answered that really maturely, Mike, about, hey, her story is her story, her scale. So she has to share that. I can't say, but did you experience any of that with her from where you sit as in your role as the coach? Was she disappointed?
No.
Yeah,
no.
she said
I think
she said a PB, so of course you guys were happy. That's where I'm learning on this.
There's always an acute reaction to, like, damn it, didn't win. Like she, and I guess the thing is she's a cool, calm, collected customer, but she is fiercely competitive. And so when she doesn't win, naturally there's frustration. Like, I'm fiercely competitive, and And so there's still that kind of like, yeah, we didn't win.
Mhm.
But but with that, like we progress closer to where we want to be. And that's our scale. And so
Mhm.
as you kind of the dust settles, you go, actually, we're climbing our scale here. That's cool. Like we did something. And yep, an Olympic medal to do it at the Olympics is kind of cherry on top. But the actual kind of cake there is that you progress to where closer to where you want to be. And but I suppose with that is Maddie's whole family was there. And in fact, my mum and sister were there as well. And for me, um, seeing the seeing how proud they were of Maddie is really special. Like that's one of those things that will sit with you for forever. And I saw the same thing in at World Juniors when she won World Juniors in Tampere.
Mhm.
Is seeing how proud they are of their daughter is just is a really special thing to see.
Yeah.
And the fashion that she did it in, and I think as well for us around how she represents herself and who she is it's just a pleasure to work with her.
Yeah.
And that probably comes across in a lot of the interviews, but that's genuinely like I think the value of that is
Mm.
quite understated.
Mhm.
Is who you work with and who they are and how a day-to-day exchange goes um, makes all the difference. And Maddie is
Yeah.
just she's Maddie, like, and she's been Maddie since World Juniors. She's Maddie now, and that's the coolest progression to see
That's
of a
cool.
young lady that's just comfortable with who she is, and to play a small role in that is certainly a privilege.
Hmm.
Um,
I love that. I think, I talk about the superpower of a coach is seeing something in someone else before they can see it in themselves. Uh, with you, the way you describe that, the positive impact you make on young people is immeasurable. And that's not even as much as you're expressing about, the pursuit of the scale and the PB. And those are important. I'm a big believer in PBs because they suck. And what I mean by that is one day you're going to hit your last one and you ain't going to know for 3, 4 more years. So celebrate every one of them because one of them's going to be your last and you ain't even going to know for a while. Right. But the experience, like if a Maddie doesn't have the team around her to help her achieve her goals, she doesn't get to go uh, around the world. I mean, those are experiences that, I assume, much like here, 99% of New Zealanders stay in New Zealand and never go out of country. Same in the US, even though we think we travel all around the world, the vast majority of us never go to see other cultures in other countries. And here, and with you, maybe you grew up on that farm thinking, yeah, maybe I'll go to Australia. Maybe that's what all New Zealanders do, but
yeah.
I'm not going to go to Oregon, America and Tokyo and France. I certainly didn't grow up thinking I was going to do those things. So to have those experiences, whether you finish first, second, third, 10th, that is the enrichment of life. That is as Maddie grows up and becomes whatever she's going to become, a doctor, a coach, a mom, she's a daughter. Those are the kind of experiences she's going to be able to impart on others because she had a good team around her and taught her how to throw a ball, a shot put far. I mean, it's kind of crazy that it's throwing this 4K thing far. You get to go to all these countries and meet all these crazy people and experiences. I mean, that to me is the beauty of sport and the beauty of coaching beyond accolade, beyond the medal, beyond PBs. It's that enrichment of life. And I just think that's absolutely cool. Mike, my kind of last wrap up question for you, assuming you're not in golf today, do you miss it? Do you regret it? I mean, you're a golfer. You're like for us track people, the great golfer. It's like you got rid of that sport. Good. You came to the good side, track and field. Do you miss it? Do you ever think about what life could have been that route?
So I actually sort of stepped back a little bit from coaching to be close to my family, and
Mhm.
so I do play a little bit more golf now.
Yeah,
I
but
do a little bit more work in golf consulting with the S&C stuff, trying to sort of take back the learnings from track and field back there instead of
oh
this way.
wow. Wait a minute.
Um,
So you took a lot of things from golf to track, now full circle.
yeah,
Because you've gotten better and more knowledgeable. Oh, that's neat. Yeah.
and so I'm sort of somewhat back there with my little consulting business I run, and to some degree I've not stepped away from coaching, but I only have a couple of athletes that I coach because I moved away from Auckland,
Mm.
um, and a lot of that was to do with um, just some reflections personally around and you guys I suppose are pretty lucky is like if you want to go to a big track meet you might have to fly 2 hours.
Yeah, right.
If we want to go to a track meet it's weeks, like we and so from probably 2018 through to 2021, um I traveled sort of 3 or 4 months of the year consistently in blocks. So I'd be home for a period of time. Our summer season would be in Australia quite a lot, and your season we would be with your in Europe. And my father and parents are getting older, and my father in particular is having some surgeries. And the day before I got on the plane to go to Tokyo, Dad went in for back surgery. Yeah, and that happened a couple of times since when I've been overseas, and I just sort of thought, well, like, and the thinking was, if everyone that I was coaching, and so at the time there was probably I had four people in the top 30 in the world, and at the time I was like, if everyone, let's say dream scenario, everyone makes the final and 3 out of 4 medals, let's say, and my father dies, will I be happy with the time I've spent in the last 10 years with him? And literally I could count on one hand how many hours I'd spent with them.
Yeah.
Because part of that journey, like I was saying originally, was like if you're going to show up, I've got to show up. So Christmas, Boxing Day, like, hey, we're throwing.
Right.
It's training time. If we want to beat you guys or whoever,
Right.
we have to do something that you guys aren't. And so I committed to that, and I still do. I just have support staff and a fantastic team that I work within for Maddie, that help that and and allows me to not be there as much, so that, like, I don't end up sort of regretting some of the choices I made, and some of that comes with maturity. And so I stepped away a lot, and given that my dad's now the golfer in the family, started playing a bit more golf, and as a function of some of the stuff I've learned, I've started working with a few golfers, and whether I have, it's an interesting journey because sort of the stuff that I don't have in track and field, aka the biases, etc., I do have in golf. And so I fight the opposite of what I fight in track and field, which is a cool journey to kind of go through and experience. You sort of bit of self-awareness, and you catch yourself going, like, is that a thing, or is that just a thing I believe in?
Right. That's funny.
So yeah.
Mike, it's interesting. I sit in a pretty privileged seat. I get to interview coaches. I hesitate sometimes to say around the world. I feel like now I officially can say around the world because you've been on the podcast, and I get to hear journeys and learn journeys of all different types. I've had coaches who were 80 plus years old on the podcast. I've had coaches who have coached for 80 days. It's their first time ever. They were an athlete or whatever the semester before. And what's interesting as I listen to your journey, I love your age and stage of where you are. And I love that I get to have this interaction with you. I usually use like a 400-meter example, but I think I can do this with the hammer. It's easy for you where you are right now in your age and stage to think that, you're, especially as we're facing elder parents. And so we're facing with the end of the story, if you will. It's easy for us in our area of age to think that I'm also getting closer to that stage. I've done, and for a guy like you who's very accomplished, like, man, I've done this and that and that. Like, it's easy to think like, oh, I know I'm not gone yet, but I'm winding down. I'm on the downhill. Dude, you're so young. How old are you? I think I gotta get,
36.
yeah. Oh, you're younger than I even thought. I was thinking you're in the 40s. Yeah. You're 36, bro, 36. So you have been coaching-esque for
About 8 years, 7, 8 years in
eight.
track and field.
Yeah. I was going to give everything. I was going to give the whole SEC everything. What, 12 years? If you count all of
12
that.
years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's use 12, right?
12, 13.
36. I don't know how it is in New Zealand, but we have a hard time financially retiring even at 66. So 30 more years for you. So let's say you get to retire at 66. And with the way health and medicine is getting, we're going to live way longer. So we're going to be able to work, guys like me and you work till we're 70, 80 years old. But even at 66, so 30 more years, that's three more roughly lifetimes of coaching. You
Yeah.
are in, so it's easy to think as we use a hammer analogy, that maybe we're in our final turn. We're getting close, and we got the release and the result and all that. You're barely in your first turn. And that is exciting to me because the impact that you've had on others is great today at 36. Well, guess what? Another 12 months and another 2 years, 5 years, 10, 20, you are going to be able to continue to have such an amazing impact on people. And I always typically say young people. I know you're dealing with, because I'm usually stopping at 22, the end of college. You're dealing with, as people continue into a professional, post-collegiate, we would say here, you're going to continue to have that positive impact on them. As your parents, you're going to continue, I had this picture of your dad, and I've never seen it. So, I have no clue what he looks like. But I had this picture of your dad hearing this story and just smiling, like how proud of because you're not, your story is, if I had to sum your story up in like one sentence, which is impossible, you have lived for other people. That's what servant leadership is. Your jollies, if you will, are gotten from, oh, they got better. Oh, they were able to achieve this goal that they had. That is where you thrive in. And that is a life worth living, my friend. That is legacy. And so I'm just so excited to be able to capture it at this age and to be able to sit on the sidelines and see what the next decade and next decade, like I can't imagine. A guy like you, I would not be surprised. I'm going to check in with you in 20 years and you're going to be, I coach a bunch of surfers. That's rotational.
That's
And so,
probably, yeah.
yeah, I'm a surfer now. And, we do this thing and I rehab, veterans who have gotten hurt in wars or whatever. And I teach them how to surf and I have no doubt. Oh my God, I hope that comes true, by the way. That would be amazing that I predicted that in 2024. But that's what I feel like. That's what I see in you. Like, oh, you're going to be doing something, whether it's like in athletics at like this high level of, Olympics and things like that, or on just the ground level, getting it done, helping people improve their lives, man. And I just think that's so cool, bro. I just see that and use it so much, man.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it.
It's puzzles that excite me.
Yeah.
Like it's never been about a lot of it's been about like my own sort of filling the hole in my own career, like the gripe that I feel like I was let down and not allowing that to flow into others.
Yeah.
But it's never been my career's never been thus far. It's never been sports specific. I've worked in boxing and beach flags and weightlifting and stand-up paddleboarding and volleyball. And it's just puzzles that I find exciting. And so you never know. I mean, at the moment, I'm doing some lecturing at EIT here, which is a local kind of polytech in sports science. And it's interesting seeing kids that were like me like literally like me, you know, like
Oh, wow.
kind of don't know what they're doing, and that's an interesting thing. And I
Yeah.
work at the local. We have a sports facility here, quite a cool facility, and seeing young athletes and young S&Cs, and I suppose like it's one of the I suppose one of the issues with someone like me coaching a medalist is that people now perceive that I have knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't even know if I have knowledge. If you bring your kid to me and you go, can you help them throw further? I'm just going like it's a process of us trying to figure it out again. Like we're back
Right.
at the start.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've probably got a few not to dos, but I don't really have the to dos. And I think like I'd be lying if I said anything else.
Mm.
But some of the kids ask me, like the S&C guys here, they ask me like, what's my advice? And I'm like, just start.
Yeah.
Like make some mistakes. Like the beautiful thing and probably one of the coolest things that I've had in my coaching career is Gus, the mentor that I talked about
Mm-hmm.
earlier, because um, he's there was a raft of PhD students under him, and he just was curious about all sorts of stuff. And he's like 50 years old, just still sending me stuff, and we Skype and Zoom, and we're talking about like hopping frequencies and all sorts of stuff. But he also allowed us to make mistakes, um, and he gave us some real reality when we needed it.
Mm.
Um, and one of the most prominent stories there that probably he probably doesn't realize it, but he shifted the course of my career on the back of Maddie winning at World Juniors.
Mm.
He sort of he like I was a young guy, pretty egotistical, probably
Mm-hmm.
just didn't know it. Like
Mm-hmm.
thought I was this kind of like level headed, you know, but I was probably pretty egotistical. I don't know, but I remember getting on the plane from Finland, and I get a text from Gus saying, "When are you back? I want to catch up with you." and and he came up to Auckland, and he sat down with me, and he was like, "So where are you at?" And I'm like, "Oh, you know, like really good, world junior champion." And he goes, um, "So what do you think?" And I was like, "Oh, you know, like just kind of waffled my way through a pat on the back."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and he goes, "Before the trip, she threw 1701. After the trip, she threw 1709. She would have got that waking up in the morning without you.
Mm.
So what have you done?"
Mm.
And so he goes, "You need to look at the data, look at the stats, and figure this out, because you need to do better." Um, and I sort of went from here to like, actually, do you know what? You can't argue with that, right?
Yeah.
Like Maddie was young. She should have been improving much faster than that. And so potentially I was letting her down at that point. um, and so I go like, I said to Gus, like I actually don't know where to start.
Mm.
And he goes, "Sweet, let's figure it out."
Uh,
And so while he gave me the reality of like actually like probably you made some massive mistakes there, and he, as part of that, he brought me back down, and then he helped me unpack the last like kind of couple of years, like, hey, you could have done this, you could have done this, you could have done this, you could have done this. um and that could have sent me down the path, like without that I could have gone down the like, I'm the man,
yeah, we're doing
you know,
everything great.
like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so he kind of shifted me back into this like curiosity, like
Hmm.
this is a puzzle, and you've viewed this in light of an outcome, but not in light of the data that's within that outcome.
Mm.
So keep being curious about these puzzles and keep exploring them. Like, it's okay to get it wrong. It's not okay to think that you got it right when it wasn't quite it. Um, and that was really early on in my career. And he sent me down a different course to the point where I was like, hey, actually, like we're about our scales, and I've gone off on a tangent here. Like, I need to come back to these puzzles to keep figuring out puzzles and stay there, because that's what I actually get value out of in my career. That's what excites me.
That's a great reminder. We talk a lot. I think everybody would agree when we talk about mentors and how valuable they are, and they are. That's a great example that be careful on my words here. I want to say a true mentor. I'm not putting anybody down here, but that a mentor will say the hard things to you. That a mentor is not there. I should say it this way. There is a style of mentorship that is there to gas you up, tell you you're doing great. There's times when we need that, when we're at low points and we need someone to say, hey man, it's not as bad as you think. You're doing this great, blah, 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 blah. But we also need those mentors that are like, hey, you feel like you're on top of the mountain. Well, what did you actually do? Let's talk about that, to reset us a little bit on
Yeah.
that curiosity stream. So that's a great story. That's a great place to end it right there. Mike, thank you so much, man. I am so grateful for this. I love this aspect. I think this will, especially amongst our throws coaches, but I'm gonna encourage you, if you are jump sprint, some of the top coaches we've had on this podcast talk a lot about that, not to pigeonhole yourself, that you're not a sprints coach, you're not a throws coach, you're not a distance coach, you are an athletics coach. And so I'm going to challenge you. If you may have gravitated towards this episode because, the title says throws coach, has success in the throws, but I'm going to challenge you to share this with your other coaches and for you as a throws coach to expand your repertoire, if you will, that there's a lot to learn here. Even just the concepts, we didn't really get into X's and O's. We didn't talk about like what to do in the weight room for rotational and things like that. I love the way you describe the kind of the, I don't want to say the difference, but what makes up technique. And there's these bandwidths of the biomechanical aspect. That's, you were describing that, and I was thinking, oh, that's long jump. He's talking about long jump there. Oh, he's talking about block starts. Like there wasn't like, oh, that's throwing. Like, oh, that's what we do to in the pole vault or the high jump. Like that, yeah, there's things that parts of it that there's bandwidths of what it has to look like, and the whole thing together is stylistic, is technique. So I just challenge you to think about some of the things he said, listen to what he said there, and how do you apply that to your coaching. So Mike, man, thank you so much. One of the most valuable things that you can ever give me is your time. It's early. I hope you had your coffee before you stepped in. You got a whole day ahead of you here, man. I'm ready to kick it and go to bed, man. I'm out. I'm done. But just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, man. I absolutely enjoyed this. I got better. I love when, I'm not a coach anymore. I haven't coached in close to 20 years now. But I like when there's the subjects are about things I'm like, oh, I can actually take these concepts and make them better for our team, the team that I help lead here at Gill. So I'm just so grateful for that aspect with you as well, my friend. So thank you so much for being here, man.
Thank you for having me. Much appreciated. And it's been a pleasure to have a chat, and for you to provide a platform to coaches to share stories. And I just, as you say, I hope that my story is of value to people, or they just get some laughs out of some of the stories.
That's right. Sometimes we need that. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Hey, if someone is listening and says, hey, I want to pick his brain, or I want to learn more, what might be the best route? I know you and I connected through Twitter. What's the best route for someone maybe to reach out to you?
sportsperformance@nz@gmail.com. I can send you that and check it in the link if you like.
Yeah, as I'll say, why don't you do that?
Feel free to email me.
Yeah, send me that or in any other links, anything you want, and I'll put that in there. Absolutely. And don't hang up when I stop here. We'll do a little post. I forgot to mention that during the pre. So guys and gals, thank you for being here again. I'm just always so humbled when I see how many people are listening to this podcast. Trust me, none of this hits my ego and thinks that you're here for me. you guys have access to me anytime, and not everybody's doing that. So I love that. That's fine. You're here because of our guest. And, as we creep towards 300 episodes, as we creep towards the end of season 5, and we're going to be right back here in season 6 in 2025, I'm just so blessed, honored, and grateful for the men and women who sit down with us. This is not, I always say, this is not an easy podcast to listen to, because this isn't a 20-minute podcast. We're past 2 hours here. I think this is not an easy podcast to listen to, which means it's not an easy podcast to be on. So I'm always grateful when guys like Mike are willing to sit down and share their journey and their story and gas up their mentors. I'm just so grateful. I sit in a very privileged and honored seat here to be able to help bring those connections together. So join us next week. We'll do it all over again, and we'll have some fun. We'll probably be in the United States next week. Just gonna guess, but New Zealand was a lot of fun today too. So thanks, everybody. Have a great week.